And now they can hear us and see us.
Let me turn off my air conditioning. Even though it's hot as shit up here.
I turned off my ice machine today. I actually remembered it.
Mm,
Now I have to remember to turn it back on
turn it on. Right. See,
before we go to
that's a
bed.
real challenge.
Right.
All right, let me start my backup. Let me get my stream up.
Yeah.
Try this again. Hopefully, I won't lag for no reason.
Oh, you will. You absolutely will.
I won't tell.
All right.
You know, that is also assuming that it pulls up my stream.
Chat can watch me eat a Cliff Bar.
Right on. Okay. All right, we're live. All right, I'm good.
Mm-hmm. Ready to go.
Let's talk some Overwatch.
All right, if you want.
I mean, I suppose we were just playing for 2 hours, so might as well talk about it. All right. What's up, nerds, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things competitive Overwatch and Overwatch 2. I am your host, Simply Drunk, and we have another pack show tonight. We are entering week 3 of the Overwatch League. BlizzCon hype is near, like very soon, like not Blizzard soon. Within the next week, we'll have some BlizzCon news, so looking forward to that. Hopefully, I'll be able to secure a medium badge. Fingers crossed. Time is going to tell on that front. Um, but a lot of stuff happening. We got a new limited time event. We got some World Cup qualifiers happening from Europe later in the week. So a lot of stuff kind of happening in a short amount of time. And we've kind of been sneaking in a little side content on our off podcast weeks, which I'm sure Spyder will mention later on in the podcast. So whether or not we have a Heroes Never Die episode that week, we'll have content available on our YouTube to fill in any of the
Mm-hmm.
blanks that we may have missed, kind of like in between, since we are still, doing a bi-weekly podcast deal.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to do um, just something in between, besides just play Overwatch. So I may not necessarily do it every off week because if there's really no news or anything to talk about, you know, and depending on Overwatch League, like there very well may come a week where there's just absolutely nothing to talk about, and in that week probably take it off. But if bare minimum, I'll go over the Overwatch League stuff on like a little segment I call Null Sector. So yeah, I mean, I did it a long time ago as like a ranty series, and the new like iteration of it will still be kind of ranty if there is something to rant about. But other than that, it's just gonna be like a quick overview and stuff like that. So that was fun. I played some Overwatch last week. This week, obviously, an event dropped, which we will talk about. You may have saw us play that at the beginning of the pre-stream. Um, yeah, I guess the only thing is next week. There probably will not be any game stream, but I'll still try to sneak in like a null sector or something, especially if we do get some BlizzCon and stuff. I have like a work thing like all next week, like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's like our annual like party and team building and all that nonsense. So that bleeds into the evening. But I should make it back Thursday night to at least bang one of those out. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I guess that's it. I mean, everything I'd want to talk about now, we're gonna talk about at some point in the show notes. So yeah, I mean, I'm ready to dive in because we've got like 22 things to talk about through 8 bullet points.
Yeah, basically. So just to preface, Ramses is not going to be here tonight. He is at a concert. He's teaching us to be social. But, like he's like going outside and stuff. So he's not going to be, messing up the OBS or anything like an hour or so into the podcast. Uh, Timber, no, this is not the movie night, bro. That's Tuesday nights. Thursday nights, we had Overwatch 2 podcast on. That's just how it is. But anyways, so if you guys are looking to keep in contact with everything going on with the show, of course, you can reach us via email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter at hndoverwatch. And of course, you can find all of our video content on our YouTube that I mentioned earlier at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. Or you can also just at HNDOverwatch and also find us that way. But of course, the easiest way to keep in contact with all of us is to join our community Discord at discord.me/OWLN show. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into everything that's been going on around Overwatch 2. As we had already mentioned, we kind of got like an announcement of an announcement for BlizzCon. So we had the president of Blizzard Entertainment, Mike Ybarra, basically announcing via Twitter that we can expect to hear some more BlizzCon 2023 news in about 2 weeks. Now, this was tweeted a week ago as of today. So we're looking at a 1 week time frame between now and whenever this announcement is going to be. And, obviously I have severely missed BlizzCon. We haven't had a physical BlizzCon since 2019. BlizzCon 2020 obviously got canceled due to the pandemic. And then we kind of had BlizzCon returning to like an online form with BlizzCon Line in February of 2021. But that was the last time we had like any sort of BlizzCon event, whether it was, physical or, just online.
Anything.
Yes. So it's been quite some time. So we know it's a big year for Blizzard just in general. We've talked about the Activision Blizzard Microsoft buyout. We've been keeping tabs on that. We have the Diablo 4 launch coming up next month. And obviously, like, Overwatch players across the globe are just anxiously awaiting the PvE launch, whenever that's going to be. We still don't know when it's going to happen. We haven't really had any news on that front. We just know that news is coming soon, but we don't know how soon. And it's definitely... I would say the community is definitely growing weary at this point in time, to say the least. But that being said, obviously, like, for BlizzCon, we know the Overwatch World Cup finals are going to be at the event because that's usually where they're held. It's just a matter of when are tickets going to go on sale? When is the event going to be? Are they going to stay in Anaheim? They probably will, just because, it is kind of like the home base. I can't imagine they'll move it outside. But it's just very weird knowing the time frame, because we're kind of like already at the point where for the people that are looking to travel, we're kind of like at the cutoff point for people to be like, okay, let me set money aside, let me request time off of work, let me get my airfare, the hotel, get all the works, because BlizzCon is by no means a cheap event. But I'm definitely someone that will go there regardless of if I have a ticket, just to meet up with all of my Blizzard friends. And it's really like the traditional one time of the year I would get to see some of them. So I'm definitely gonna make it a point to go there, regardless of whether or not I have a ticket, see everyone, check out the community events. Who knows? Maybe we'll have another World of Podcast. I don't know. I got to talk to, Seraphis and Ro about that, see what's going on with that. Same with Combi Before the Storm. But it's just nice to know that we got news happening soon.
Yeah, I mean, an announcement of an announcement is always kind of a like a non-factor. But it is nice that they're at least acknowledging the community's eagerness, I guess is the nice way to put it. Because there are a lot of people that I know that do travel to BlizzCon, and they're like freaking out. They're like, well, how am I supposed to plan for this? Like, some people have to put in time off like 6 months in advance for that long. Obviously I'm on the East Coast, so there's a fair bit of travel involved. So it's nice that they're at least talking about it. I, like you said, if the timetable lines up, we should hear within the next week, which is fine. I am fully expecting like a smaller event, like a more focused event. Like, you're probably going to have some like core game panels. You're going to have, obviously your big main stage introduction. You're going to have the Overwatch World Cup. But beyond that, like, they don't have any other esports right now. StarCraft's esports dead. Heroes of the Storm esports is dead. Hearthstone's esport is pretty much dead. Maybe more than me, is Battlegrounds doing anything, or
No, okay, so with Battlegrounds in particular, usually they'll do like streamer events anytime they do like a major patch when they're introducing like a new mechanic or like a new tribe.
Yeah, so maybe they'll do like a show match or something for Hearthstone. But beyond that, like I am expecting a much smaller, much more focused event, and I think that's why they're like taking their time because they may not have it at the Anaheim Convention Center because they may not need that amount of space. So I'm curious to see what they do. I just don't think it's going to be like the pre-COVID BlizzCons, especially with all the stuff. Like there's so much stuff like the allegations, the Microsoft merger, um, the lack of esports at this point because the last time they had a BlizzCon, they had multiple esports running. Um,
Hmm.
so, yeah, I'm curious to see what they do. But yeah, I would expect a smaller event, like taper in those expectations. Like think of it in between BlizzCon online and like the last BlizzCon. Like I think it's gonna fall somewhere in between there. As long as we don't end up with Stylosa trying to open a loot box, I think we'll be great.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, we also don't need like Train to be in like the BlizzCon headlining band. A band you could see at the local county fair. But that's besides the point. But anyways,
I'm so
obviously
glad I
we'll
got to
talk
see
more.
Muse.
The musical acts are hit or miss. That's all I'll leave on the table on that front because there's definitely been some absolute great ones and other ones I'm like, why the hell did I even poke my head in here?
Mm-hmm.
Um, like Blink 182, for instance. Jeez.
Oh.
Not a good live band by any means, as much as I like their studio stuff. Besides the point. But anyway, so we got a new patch that dropped on live servers earlier this week, which would have been on Tuesday. So we got the new limited time event Star Watch, which we were playing earlier on the stream. We also have they were talking about the return of Battle for Olympus. I didn't look to see if that's actually in game,
Yeah,
but they were mentioning like they were bringing it back.
and there's actually a team deathmatch mode as well. So it's still Battle for Olympus. I kind of wish that they would have brought back the ability to get the titles,
Mhm.
um, just as like another opportunity to get it. Just kind of as like a hey, here's another chance to get some of the titles, especially in like team deathmatch, because it is a little easier to secure some kills and stuff in team deathmatch. So, well, we'll see, but yeah, I mean, the Star Watch event. I mean, I guess that's the big thing we want to talk about. So, it is not as much PVE as people thought it was going to be, and some people
Right.
are really mad about that. Um, but I personally think it's fine for what it is. Like I'm treating it like Battle for Olympus. Like it's just a
Mhm.
mini event that is fun. It's a new game mode. There is very light PVE elements if you count a feeding Doomfist on one team, which wasn't helped by a bug the first couple of days where his block just wasn't working. Um,
Mhm.
but we played it today, so I want to hear your thoughts. Like, what are your thoughts of Star Watch? We did, both sides a couple of times.
We did. Yeah, so just for those that aren't aware, Star Watch is underway. It's in the arcade mode as Galactic Rescue. And, it's like a 4v4 mode. It's also like a 4 capture point on Horizon Lunar Colony. Just, kind of like a different shading of the map in itself. And, this is running through May 22nd. We got 9 event specific challenges in all, which, one of them grants like 30K, battle pass experience, which is like 3 levels, but overall you can unlock 5 full levels out of the battle pass by completing all 9 of the challenges, which, you can unlock a couple of voice lines, there's a name card, a couple of sprays, as well as a weapon charm. So, with this mode, you play as either the Watchers, which are on the attack, or you're the Infinite Empire, who are defending. And your goal is basically to, if you are on offense, capture all 4 points. And, if you're a defender, you kind of like have turrets at each point. And then there are also a couple of mechanics to look out for in regards to like the last capture point, because we kind of have like the anti-gravity shenanery going on. There's also these
Mm-hmm.
vials that if you step on them, they create Graviton Surge-esque abilities on the floor. But yeah, like I have to say, like going in, like I'd heard people complaining about like the AI on it, but like there's really not a whole lot of PvE
Mm.
involved in this mode, like at all. It's like sure, you kind of got like a little story cutscene at the beginning as well as the ends, but outside of that, not really a whole lot. But I did appreciate the fact that things were kind of randomized in regards to the capture points, so it kind of keeps things fresh. But I don't know if that necessarily means like the replayability factor for the game mode is like a lot higher, just because a lot of people, regardless for these limited time events, are just going to go in, they're going to knock out the challenges and basically call it a day and just let
Yep.
things like rest, unless there's like a title or something that they are trying to get, like we got for the Battle for Olympus. But this one really doesn't have that.
No, and that's like my one criticism is the replayability is okay. It's if you enjoy Overwatch, you probably would enjoy this. For the most part, I think the biggest like detriment to this isn't like the lack of PVE or the map or anything. The points. It's the comps. Like they just like front loaded the DPS on the Galactic Empires or the Infinite Empire. Wrong franchise. The
Mhm.
Infinite Empire side is like you have the choice of Diva or Sigma as your tank, which are both good tanks. Then you have Bastion, Sojourn, or Soldier 76 as your two DPS. So you get to pick two out of those three. And then your healers are either Mercy or Brig, both of which are good healers, especially Mercy because you compare it with a Sojourn or a Bastion. And then the other side has to deal with Winston or Wrecking Ball as their tanks. So you're playing Wrecking Ball or Winston into a Bastion with a Mercy pocket essentially. And they justify that with a Doomfist, and the Doomfist just jumps in, uses all his cooldowns, and then dies like repeatedly. So you basically treat the Doomfist as like a meat shield and try to piggyback off of his dives, but he doesn't secure kills. He doesn't do much. So like the team comps are really my problem with it. The 4 CP is fine. The map layout is fine. The cool little intros and the ending changes whether or not you win or lose depending on which side you're on. I think that's cool because basically what it does is it just gives the game mode context. Like we know the lore behind some of the maps, but we don't really know like, hey, why are we trying to push this cart in Rialto? Like, stuff like that. Like we know obviously Hollywood's pretty cut and dry, like escort the VIP and stuff like that. But this is cool, like a cool little context, and I actually wish they would do this before every map. The first time you play that map, like just a cool little intro cutscene of be like, hey, welcome to Havana. We have to push this car to the end because the robot distillery is having problems and this is going to upgrade their defenses, or some stupid little snippet to increase the lore of the game to build up to PvE. So I think that's a cool aspect of it. But the actual game mode, like you said, you're gonna play till you get the challenges done, and you're done. And there's no like ultimate grind. Like I had criticized Battle for Olympus because the grind was too much and there were too many of them. I think every event should have like one grindy thing that is optional. Like I think you should be able to get the bulk of everything fairly easily through like one or maybe two nights of play if you have really bad luck. And then if you really want like the title or like a special skin or something like that, like a little bit extra, I think they should include like one grindy thing to incentivize people to keep playing this. But overall, like I wasn't going into it with huge expectations because I kind of tempered it to the point where I was like, okay, it's just going to be a PvP with PvE light mode to keep us through like Battle of Olympus was. And that's essentially what it turned out to be. So I'm happy with it other than, balancing issues.
And another thing too is like for a while Like one of the community ideas that people have wanted to see from a game mode is like for nodes, but they wanted it more as like a control map, not necessarily
Like a
okay,
domination.
we're getting like 1 point and then we're going on to the next. Yeah, they were looking for domination in particular, so
Hmm.
not quite what the community wanted on that front. But it shows that at least the capabilities are there to do it, but it's just like since we are now at a 5v5 game in Overwatch 2, just that kind of like completely negates any possibility of that actually coming to fruition at this
Yeah,
point in time.
I don't think that would work well in Overwatch 2. Um, I was playing a lot of Destiny PvP these past couple weeks because like there's an event going on in that, and one of the main modes in that is control, which is
Mhm.
unlike Overwatch control, basically domination. Like you have A, B, and C, and the more points you have captured when you make a kill, the more points you get for that kill, kind of thing. Um, and as I was playing that, I was thinking about it. Like I don't think this would work at this state of Overwatch right now, because there is no point where you couldn't leave someone, like you can't leave someone behind to defend a single point, because
Mhm.
if more than, honestly, if two people show up, that person's going to have a hard time. If three people show up, it's nearly impossible. Whereas at Destiny, if you play things right and you have cooldowns and stuff, you can pull that off. Um, Especially if you're, not me and good at the game. But yeah, I don't think we'll ever see a domination type game mode unless they put in a bigger team mode, which
Mhm.
is possible. Like, um, eventually we could see like 12v12 or 10v10 game modes um, in Overwatch. Like I think that's something that I'm sure the devs had looked at. Like obviously the core is going to be 5v5 and we're going to have everything balanced for 5v5. But they've added these little knobs here and there that makes me think that they could easily ramp it up to 10v10 if they put the infrastructure in behind it. And then we can see bigger game modes, and we could actually see something like Star Watch, but at a grander scale, and that's when we're going to start to see, maybe some of the PVE fruition. And I know Avril was talking about it on Plat Chat, but he basically wants like a Destiny type game in Overwatch, which would basically be Project Titan, um,
Mhm.
for Overwatch 3. So we'll see if they ever get there, because I feel like Overwatch has the universe for it, and I think this fun little event is like just like the toe dip in there. But in terms of like PVE ness, which is hilarious to say, I just love saying that. It is way less PVE than like Junkenstein, uh,
Mhm.
by far. So
It's like
ten,
a 1.5 on the scale.
yeah. So I wouldn't even put it that. I'd put it at like a 1.25, because as we were playing it, I was explaining it to you. Like the first step of every attack is kill the turrets, then deal with the enemy team. Like that's it. Like you feed until you get those turrets dead. And if the defending team is smart, they just defend the turrets, which is what you saw us do during one game. Like we
Mhm.
held the B point because we basically just kept like three of our turrets up because we were healing them on cooldown, and like I was standing in front of them as Bastion so they weren't taking damage, and stuff like that. So uh it as a whole, Star Watch is fun. I think the skins are phenomenal. Like I love all of the skins. My only criticism on the skins is the Echo one's kind of lame, but beyond that, I like all the other ones. Like I like all the battle pass skins we've talked about. The shop skins right now have Echo and Torb. I am like this close to buying that Torb skin, because he reminds me of Barf from Spaceballs. But yeah, I mean it is an event to sell skins, and it is working. So
Mhm.
you know, take that as a W. But yeah, there were other things in this patch that happened.
Yeah, there's a couple of things.
There's a couple.
Some of which we saw. in play here. So we got an update to the push mode in particular in regards to the respawn time for players. They increased that from 10 seconds to 12 seconds while their team's forward spawn location is activated. So, Spider, you made a comment about this earlier because we got to see it firsthand. How you feeling about this change? Because
I
definitely
it,
took a while there.
it it is noticeable. Like that 2 seconds is noticeable. And there was one point when we were playing our favorite map, Coliseo, where I was on Zenyatta, and our Reinhardt stepped back enough that they got rid of that forward spawn, and in that extra 2 seconds, then I got long spawned all the way in the back. So I had to float my ass all the way across the map to get to you guys. Um, but yeah, it is noticeable. I agree with the change because I feel like push is so snowbally that it it just I don't know, like especially Coliseo. Like Coliseo is obviously the worst, but the other two maps definitely suffer from it as well. But you know, you would win like one or two team fights, and then you could just keep fighting in the middle, like near the middle. Especially like I said, Coliseo is the worst. And keep using that front spawn to get back and keep them as long as you could keep them away from that middle point. Um, that was like the go-to strategy in the high level, and you know, most people kind of figured it out. Like, you know, if you keep rotating in and out, that is, you know, that is the optimal strategy. Whereas with this change, can't do that anymore. Like,
Mhm.
you have to um, be a little more proactive. But yeah, it is noticeable. I don't think it changes like the dynamics of push that much. Like, obviously, if you win 3 fights, the enemy team still has to win 3 fights to, you know, match that distance. But the I don't know, the overall flow hasn't changed that much, but I think it made it a little more fair for defending. If the enemy, you know, if the team got rolling, the only problem with push, and they talked about this on Plat Chat, and I absolutely agree that all push maps are symmetrical. So anything you do that helps or hurts one team is going to help and hurt the other team as well. So even if you make this change, right, and that other team starts to swing back in the other direction, as soon as they get a forward spawn, they're suffering the same problem. So it's going to make it just as hard for them to push that extra distance, if, you know, it is past that first point. So I don't think it changes it too much. I think overall it just makes it a little bit easier to defend while, you know, making map completions a little harder. But we'll see. I don't know. We still did fairly well. We played multiple push maps tonight, and Coliseo was the one I noticed it the most on. But I did notice it on what was it, New Queen Street, when I was playing Drunker Queen. There were certain points where I was like, "Come on, let me just get back in the fight. Let me just get back in the fight. Like, we can win this fight." And then I'd be like sitting there forever. So, uh, you know, it is noticeable, but it is nice to see that they are making changes to push, because push has taken a lot of shit
Mhm.
over the past, you know, since the game launched. And I feel like they're waiting a little too long to make these changes. Like, I feel like they should be tinkering with push, you know, like every other patch, like doing something like this. You know, it speeding up the bot when he's not pushing things, you know,
Mhm.
making it, you know, because there are definitely, like, my biggest criticism with push is, and I actually really like push. I'm one of the few people that I talk to that actually enjoy push, as long as it's not Coliseo. Um, like, there's a lot of dead time in like push maps compared to even like all the other maps. Like control maps is like, okay, we lost the fight, all right, let's get back on the control point, let's go. Whereas, you know, hybrid and, you know, escort maps, it's like, okay, we know where to take the fight, like we'll stage the fight, let's push and, you know, take the fight. Push, it's like, okay, we don't want to fight here, let's back up and wait like
Mhm.
30 seconds and then we'll take a fight. Or like, hey, we just got our asses kicked, let's just let them push a little bit and then we'll use the high ground to our advantage. Like, there's like, some people like it because it's tactical, but to me it's just dead time where you're like, waiting and waiting and waiting. And at our skill level, nobody wants to do that. So like half of the team will wait because they know it's not a good point to, rush in and try to take the fight at 4 different angles. And then you're fighting 3v5. So that's my only criticism of the mode. But like I said, they need to make some more changes, but it is nice to see them actually tinkering with it a little bit.
Yep. Outside of that, we also have a new season for competitive deathmatch kicking off
Ooh.
on May 16th. If that's something you're into, go check that out. But obviously, we got a ton of balance changes. Obviously, there's been a ton of talk about Junker Queen in particular. So let's go ahead and see all these buffs that came JQ's way. So the scattergun max ammo was increased from 6 to 8. Jagged blade projectile size was also increased from 0.15 to 0.2 meters. And Rampage now deals 40 impact damage, but they also decrease the wound damage from 100 to 60. Yep. Then the passive healing multiplier for Adrenaline was increased from 1.25 times, now up to 2 times damage dealt by wounds. And, I've definitely seen a few people like hop on and be like, I've seen Twitter and people like, I haven't touched Junker Queen since like she came out, or Jotes, and it's just like, then I'm seeing like all of these stats, and I'm just like, what the hell is going on? And then we hop in, and then like, I get it.
Yeah, no, you saw me go in there, and like, there were multiple fights when I would just be the last one to die every time, and I would just be in the front of them like every time. Like I think there was one fight where I went like 1v3 and I took out 2 of them before I died. So it is insane. Like the knife is so much easier to hit now. The rampage, I actually really like the rampage change, because you can go in there, you can shoot somebody, you can swing your axe at them, and then you can rampage, and that will pretty much kill them as long as you landed a good amount of your shots. So it is easier to secure initial kills with rampage, which for people who don't know, if you kill somebody while you have a wound on them, you get all that life back immediately. And now you get even more of that life back. So I wanted to look for it, but I didn't have time. I had to take care of something, in our intermission. But there's a clip of Super where he throws out his ult on Junker Queen. He's in I think it's Havana, and they're in like the hallways on second point, and everybody's in there. And he throws out his ult, whiffs it because he runs it into a wall. And then just like goes ham with his axe, and he gets his second ultimate in like 15 seconds, and then throws his ultimate out and wipes the enemy team. And like everybody in chat is like, what the hell happened? Like how did you do that? And like you can just see, because of the healing and because of the damage, like she is insane. And I mean, you saw it tonight. Like there were multiple times when I was the first one with my ultimate by far. It was a little weird because we didn't end up playing any Junker Queen. Like we didn't play against any other Junker Queens. Like everybody played other tanks. And as Junker Queen now, there isn't a tank that I'm scared to go head to head against anymore. Because I've been playing Junker Queen this whole time just because I like the way she plays. But you just run in there and start going ham, and she just heals herself and she's fine. Like as long as you have a healer somewhat paying attention to you that isn't Lifeweaver, you'll be fine. Like and like I said, the scattergun change is nice. Like the more bullets is a little noticeable. But obviously the 2 big ones are the self-healing and the knife. Like the knife is so much easier to hit. Like I don't think people understand how big of a change that is until you like there's a couple of videos online that show the difference, like the before and after. It is insane, like the leeway you have on that knife now, because there were multiple points when I would like target like a Kiriko or something running up a box, and I would hit her and pull her off or something like that, which I couldn't do before, because she's got like this hitbox that's like that big. So Junker Queen is insane in the membrane.
Absolutely, and we'll see how long it takes for them to dial it back just a little bit, but have fun with Junker Queen while it lasts.
Yep.
We also got a couple of changes to the other tanks. Orisa, her augmented fusion driver damage was increased from 12 to 13. And then Winston also saw a change to his jetpack damage radius before fall off beginning, which was increased from 1 to 1.3 meters. And then Wrecking Ball's adaptive shield effect duration was decreased from 9 to 7 seconds overall.
Hmm.
So yeah, obviously, like we saw a fair amount of like Orisa tonight, not so much like Winston or Wrecking Ball. I mean, outside of
Starlight.
playing the limited time event, which we can't really count on that front just because of the compositions in play. But like the Orisa change definitely not super noticeable in that regard. But
It is when you play her. Like I've gotten a few games where I've played Mystery Heroes and I've played her. It is noticeable if you can land the shots. Like I don't know what the Orisa was doing tonight that we played against the couple of them, but like she is back to the point where as long as you're not too far away, if you spear someone, you can kill them pretty quickly with headshots. So it's not a huge change, not like Junker Queen, but it is noticeable enough that I think it will bring Orisa back around into the conversation.
Yep, not too much on the front of DPS balance updates. So we do have a couple of changes to Echo specific to her duplicate. So the alt cost was reduced by 25%, and then the alt generation during the ultimate was decreased from 5.5 times to 4 times while it's
Mm.
active. So yeah, there were definitely a lot of times with Echo where you pop your duplicate, you would get whoever, and there were times you're getting 2 ultimates out in that span of your duplicate, and it just felt absolutely ridiculous. So dialing it back a little bit, but you're also getting it sooner as well. So it's kind of like a give and take sort of situation.
Yeah, I played a little bit Echo today, and I've played her a couple times since the patch. It is noticeable how much faster you get your ultimate, but it is even more noticeable how you're like at one point I duplicated Zenyatta tonight, absolutely totally on purpose. I wasn't aiming for the Junker Queen at all. And like I landed a bunch of shots and then I was like, wait, how am I only 90% to ultimate? Like I landed like 4 headshots and like 3 body shots, and I was still sitting there like, just give me transcendence, okay? Make this worth it. But I think it's a good change. I feel like the power of Echo duplicating someone is enough to make it viable in 5v5. Like in 6v6 it was a different story. Like the ultimates were game changers, and she still can get ultimates super fast, but I think just especially now, if you duplicate the enemy tank, or you duplicate the enemy DPS to the point where suddenly they're not prepared for whatever DPS is on the field, I think that's enough of an ultimate, especially if you get it fast enough, which you do. So, I think this is a good change. I don't think it will change like her usage rate or like her win rate or anything in most levels. Like we may see top level changed, and we may see maybe her used a little differently in Overwatch League, because there are a couple teams that play Echo comps in Overwatch League, if they make it to this patch, which we will talk about later. But yeah, I don't think this is like a huge change. I think this is just like one of those weird things like they do with Pharah, where they screw with their jump jets. Like they just change how the character plays a little bit, but it doesn't have a huge effect on like wins or losses or anything like that.
Hmm. Yeah, we also had an update to Junkrat's concussion mine, the max damage being increased from 100 to 110. And this is like one of them that definitely is more impactful, like at our level.
Yes. Oh yeah.
The spam red is definitely real.
Junk, Junkrat is like the bane of me playing tank. Like I there were multiple times I was like, I can kill this Junkrat, and then he would like throw a mine in my face like, oh, I'm dead. Cool. Okay. Like I definitely thought I could live through that. So yeah, I don't know why they made this change. Like I feel like Junkrat he was really good, and then they nerfed him a little bit, and then he was like okay at most skill ranges. So then they were like, cool, let's buff Junkrat again. like, no, did you guys? We just got rid of him for a bit, and I love Junkrat. Like Junkrat was like one of my go-to DPS for a long time because I just love playing him. But yeah, I don't think anybody asked this, and I don't think anybody wants this. Like, the two-shot combo is definitely much easier now,
Hmm.
but we'll see. Maybe maybe the this will bring Zarya even more into the meta because Zarya is like one of the direct counters to Junkrat.
Hey, I'm all for it on that case. And a couple of support updates as well. So Ana's Biotic Grenade Explosion Healing was nerfed from 100 to 60. Baptiste Immortality Field cooldown was decreased from 25 to 23 seconds.
Hmm.
Then the Kiriko Kunai reloads after 65% of the animation has completed, which is down from 75%. And then kind of like more of a quality of life thing with Life Weaver in regards to Life Grip. You can no longer Life Grip Reinhardt during Earth Shatter, and using Earth Shatter will now cancel Life Grip.
Yep. I mean, they just talked about it. Like you can't troll Reinhardt's anymore. The rest of the support changes, I don't think it's gonna change too much. The Kiriko is a nice like quality of life because it did feel like you were like reloading forever.
Mm-hmm.
The obviously the big one is Ana. She's a little more diveable, but I don't like Ana wasn't good because of her like anti-dive ability. Ana was good because she threw her grenade in and then you can't heal somebody for, 5 seconds and then the enemy team can run over them. Like this wasn't the grenades intended like current intended focus. Sure, it will help people at it will it used to help people at our level like stay alive longer, but if that's what the Anna's saving her nade for, she's not getting the value that she could before. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a weird change, but I'll see how it plays out. Like I actually haven't played a lot of support this week since these changes. Like tonight was the first ones I played, and I played Brig and Zenyatta. So I still need to get in there and test it out because she is my most played hero. So I figured I better test it out.
Yeah, and I'm not the one to test her out in this case between us.
you
Regardless
couldn't
of if I'm in support jail, anyways.
you couldn't land a grenade on yourself anyway.
Uh, I would just throw it off the map.
Yeah,
Almost like I did with Tracer earlier.
yeah. Well, that
I
happens
blinked
to
twice.
everybody.
I'm like, oh, I'm falling, and then I'm like, oh, thank God, my recall is actually up. Yeah, really, the only other thing outside of that, we do have a number of like quality of life settings that they kind of like added. So we
Mm,
got some more capabilities to, custom tailor your experience depending on what character you're playing. I'm not gonna go over all of them. You can see them in the patch notes.
there are a
Um,
lot of them.
yeah, but of course, without any new patch, we had to talk about some game-breaking bugs that have popped up. Some of which have been patched as of today, but still worth talking about. So Sigma definitely being the big one. Sigma had to be disabled from rank play because of
Hmm.
this. So basically, what was going on is Sigma was basically flying infinitely
Forever.
while using his ultimate.
Hmm.
So we did get an update from Aaron Keller earlier today. I was like a couple of hours before we sat down to do the podcast. Just so kind of give us an update on some of the bugs that have been going on. And we do know that the Sigma flying bug has been fixed, as well as the Doomfist and Ramatra blocking beam damage inconsistently. Timber, you have a good night, man. I will catch you later. So yeah, some weird beam damage inconsistency going on with some of the tanks as well. But Team 4 is also taking a look at some other fixes. One in particular they noted was a Hiriko teleport bug, as well as a camera shake issue whenever you are firing a weapon. I haven't seen that one
Yep.
in game, but
It's noticeable.
that's also there. But in regards to Sigma, like we do know that he's going to be put back into rank play and re-enabled
Hmm.
soon. Uh, just he's not up as of yet. But by the time probably I'm sure like he'll be back in by tomorrow, more than likely, just based off
Yeah.
the timetables that we traditionally get for this sort of thing. But they're on top of it. It's always good to see like, oh shit, like this game breaking bug. We cannot have this happening in ranked play. We'll take them out. So they've been on top of it in regards to that. But it seems like every major patch we're getting something that just completely breaks the server.
Yeah, and this one was bad. Like, and it was easily replicatable because I went into a custom game and spawned in an AI bot, and I was able to do it like the first try. Like it was super easy to do, and then you're just flying around. You can't use any of your abilities, but you can use your primary fire. So like
Hmm.
it was basically like truly raining justice from above. So it was hilarious to see, but it was good that they disabled them. Obviously, the other big one was the Doomfist and the Ramattra one that you talked about. Uh, I know they had specifically said it was beam damage, but it was a lot of damage. Like I know Doomfist specifically was having problems just blocking damage in general, which made the bot in Star Watch even worse.
Hmm.
But it is good that they fixed that pretty quickly. So we'll see what else is going on. I haven't seen the camera shake issue yet. I've seen like streamers replicate it, but I've never personally encountered it. So we'll see. But I imagine they'll have a quick fix for all that stuff too. It's just spaghetti code strikes back.
Absolutely. So that's basically everything, at least on the Overwatch 2 front, in regards to the game. Of course, obviously, we still got quite a bit going on in the competitive side. So we'll go ahead and shift gears to our esports roundup for the past couple of weeks. So first up, we got the Overwatch World Cup returning this week with a wildcard round in regards to Europe. So we got 6 teams competing, and this is starting, I want to say, on the 16th.
Yep.
So we got 6 teams looking to secure spots to advance to the EMEC, with the top 2 from each group moving on. So 2 teams are basically getting knocked out here. So Group A consists of Denmark, Ireland, and Portugal. And then in Group B, we have Finland, Switzerland, and United Arab Emirates. So obviously Denmark and Finland being the 2 notable teams in this, pretty much a guarantee that they're going to be 2 of the teams to advance, as they are the heavy favorites in their respective groups. So in regards to like the rosters for those 2 teams in particular, I'll just go over those really quick. Denmark, we have Shockwave, Naga, Shax, Doge, Molfig, Kelix, and Slay. Basically, all of those names we know.
Yep.
Slay's like really the only one I'm not too familiar with, but he did play on Twisted Minds, uh, also with Kelix. So you do have some synergy there on that front. And then with Finland, we have Sauna, Cloud, LH Cloudy, Vistola, Mickey, Oil, and Masa. So again, some familiar names on that roster, but not quite as stacked as what we have seen from Finland in the past, but still a fairly notable team. I don't think it's going to be like a Final Four team by any stretch of the imagination. But just looking at who they're going up against, you got a lot of people who aren't even listed on like contenders teams,
Yeah.
for the other teams, and I haven't even seen an Arab lineup for their roster on like Wikipedia either. So
Nope.
who knows what's happening on that front? Maybe they're just gonna forfeit. I have no idea, but you would at least hope to see them fielding a team, because otherwise it would be kind of crappy. Because you would assume in that case they would just bring it to the next team based off of player population out of Europe.
Yep. Or round robin it, or who knows? Like, maybe they just haven't announced their team. Like, they could have a team ready to go, and we just don't know it yet. So we'll see. I mean, they've still got a week, so it's cool that it's starting. They haven't announced like any place that it's streaming or anything like that. Uh, Obviously, keep an eye out on like the Play Overwatch Twitch, which occasionally gets used, or the Overwatch YouTube. But yeah, we haven't heard anything about that yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, obviously the bigger stuff is still yet to come
Yep.
for the World Cup. We're not quite at the group stage as of yet, and that's when things will really start to ramp up in regards to the esports coverage on that front. And speaking of esports, Man, I saw that tweet from Activision last week, and oh my god, the amount of drama that was caused from this tweet. So Activision,
Drama.
you know, drawing a lot of attention from the community as they basically are just like, yeah, like we got concerns over the longevity of our business model. So this is basically what they said. Our collaborative arrangements for our professional esports leagues, which would be, of course, the Overwatch League and Call of Duty League, continue to face headwinds, which are negatively impacting the operation and potentially the longevity of the leagues under the current business model. We continue to work to address these challenges, which could result in significant costs, and such efforts may prove unsuccessful. You know,
Bum,
like
bum, bum.
I see this and, constantly, time and time again, we talk about doom and gloom in regards to the current infrastructure of esports, how things are operated, teams not seeing any sort of return, teams disbanded from the Overwatch League, like the Chengdu Hunters. The fact that live events can never pull a profit. The fact that really there are no live events, really, honestly. Like, there's only a couple here and there. You have live events happening in CDL in places that don't actually have a franchise team. The list goes on, and it just, things start to pile up time and time again. So when you see Activision of of everyone like coming out, like, yeah, we're having some issues. It's not necessarily like the best look, but it at least takes some balls to be like, you know what, we're just gonna lay it out here. Our business model probably not gonna work. We're gonna go back to the drawing board. We'll have to see what sort of plans they're gonna do. See if they're gonna pivot. I would love to see crowdfunding for like events in particular.
Mhm.
Whether or not they're going to go that direction remains to be seen. But we've seen other esports do that. Dota in particular has done that fairly extensively. So maybe that's a business model that they could look to adapt. But when I saw this, my first thought was like, oh fuck, here
Oh
we
god.
go again, stirring the pot. We are basically shaking the hornet's nest, and we'll see where things fall on that front.
I mean, to the crowdfunding, that's actually what I was going to talk about. Blizzard has actually done that in the past. Like they
Mhm.
did it with StarCraft multiple years. Uh, for so I don't understand why they don't do it now. Like it's such like an easy I don't say easy thing to do, but it's easy money, man. Come on. And they do mention like they do have plans to shift the revenue model to more of the live servicey type of bullshit, I guess is the best way to put it. Like skins and stuff like that. And we've seen it this season. Like we've seen it already start with like the support bundles and the tank bundles and the support bundles because it's not like DPS players are like the focus or anything. So I I think this this tweet is, while it's concerning, I feel like it's very tactical because they're obviously in the middle of the whole merger thing that's having a lot of problems. Um,
Mhm.
they're also, being sued or litigated on by the teams in the Overwatch League, not all the teams, but some of the teams in the Overwatch League for, this stuff. So I feel like this is kind of like a cover your own ass type tweet while being like you're going to see some major changes, and if those major changes don't work, that's when you're going to do the doom and gloom. So I feel like this is kind of like that first like dipping your toe into the water. So I think next year's Overwatch League and CDL are going to look very different than this year. Whether it's smaller scope, more microtransactions. We'll see how things progress. But I feel like, at least to me, this isn't doom and gloom so much as and I don't want to go like too hard on the copium, but to me this is them finally acknowledging that like the Nate Nanzer 2018 NFL style of esports is never gonna work, especially in like a post-COVID world. So they're like, we need to change things, we understand things aren't working. So we are going to start that process. And here's some of our basic ideas. So, uh, and, it's easy to like armchair developer or armchair, you know, GM a league or stuff like that. Whatever we're doing at this point, or so we're getting high up there on the totem pole. But I think they can make these profitable. I just don't think that they'll ever become like the NFL. And I think they finally realized that. Like this is not going to be the Vince McMahon story where he builds, an empire out of nothing. Like that's not where esports is right now. Um,
Mhm.
and honestly, I don't think Blizzard is the one to do that. I think if anyone could pull that off, it's Riot because they actually understand how to run esports. Whereas Blizzard has killed every esport it's ever tried to run. So at least they're acknowledging it. So, like I said, I don't want to go too hard in the copium, but to me, this is at least them acknowledging that there is a problem publicly and being like, look, shit sucks. We understand. Our investors understand. Trust us. But we have some ideas, and you're going to see some major changes. So that's how I read into this. And it hurt to read. Like I definitely had that knee jerk reaction. Like, oh, you don't want to hear that coming from like the people who are doing this. Like it's different if it's some rando on Twitter. But like I said, I've had time to process it. And I'm kind of like, okay, you know, is the league going to be around in 3 years? We don't know. But I think the next year we're going to see the league. It's going to be very different. And if that doesn't work, that's like the oh shit button time.
Mhm. Yeah, I just want my GM mode. That's what we're waiting on. We got all these for like FIFA and all these other, soccer and wrestling games. Where's our other esports? GM mode. That's really what we need, so we can prove that we can armchair things better than the league heads can on both fronts. But yeah, outside of that, for the league, Sean Miller did provide an update in regards to the patch cycles. In regards to the mid-season madness, turns out we're remaining on the season 4 launch patch. And he made the comments that, we're always looking to keep Overwatch League balance as close to the live game as we can, but given that there won't be sufficient time to transition Overwatch League to Season 5 for mid-season madness, nor a fair way to match the live game with Season 4 mid-cycle, we determined the best option for all parties is to remain on a Season 4 launch patch the league is currently using through the conclusion of mid-season madness. As we
Mm-hmm.
consider future balance patch impacts for the rest of the season, we'll continue to do our best to align the live service with the Overwatch League competition as much as possible. Now, obviously, like they've always said like outright, like, yeah, we're gonna try to keep things as close to the game as possible. But I've always felt like that has always been unrealistic.
Yes.
Like it's basically having that carrot on the stick and you're just constantly chasing.
Mm-hmm.
It's much like the grand idea of, franchise leagues for Activision. Not quite that for reaching that point. And it's fine. This isn't going to happen every time. There have been seasons that have aligned better than others.
Yep.
And more times than not, that seems to be like whenever a new hero is getting introduced to the game, where they're like, "Oh, that'd be great. Now we can insert Brigitte into the playoffs, and then Dallas will just run ham because really they're the only team running Brigitte 80% of the time, and it seems to be working out well for them. Just being the most common example that people think of off the top of their head. Um, so yeah, I can't say like I'm too surprised by this, and obviously like we've already seen some of the bugs happening. But at the same time, it's like there's always going to be a little bit of disconnect between like the Overwatch League and the overall player base. But I don't think we're going to ever be at the point where everything is just smoothed out to the point where it's like every mid-season or entering like the playoff portion of these tournaments, we're always going to be like on that active patch.
Yeah, and I think that dream has gone by the wayside now that we've switched to these longer form tournaments. The qualifiers into the playoffs, into the mid-season madness, kind of thing. Uh, I think it's smart that they recognize this. I I 100% believe this is because of the bugs in the Junker Queen buff, where,
Hmm.
I think if this patch had been different, they may have changed it. Like, I think what they saw is they saw some really bad bugs, and they saw the Junker Queen change, and they knew, obviously Overwatch League has this information beforehand. How much beforehand we don't know, but we have to hope that they are not reading the patch notes as we are reading the patch notes. Like, that would be kind of shitty. It's entirely possible, but we just don't know. But I have to understand that, or I have to think that, like, Sean Miller had this, and they've been talking about this. Like, okay, if we put this patch during mid-season madness, it will basically invalidate everything we've played up to this point, because we're basically going from a pseudo dive slash rush meta to jotes again. Like, you are gonna see jotes again, especially with the Brig, as strong as she is right now. You would see like Brig Lucio or Brig Zen, and you would just see like teams just going ham at each other. So I have to feel like, Overwatch League said, nah, we ain't doing this shit. Like, this is too much of a change, and the bugs are just like even more fuel to that fire. Poor fuel lacking the fire now, but
Hmm.
um, yeah, I have to feel like this is not a knee jerk reaction, but this is definitely a reaction to what was in the patch, more so than like they were like, oh, we were gonna do this all along. Like, we were definitely gonna stay on the season 4 patch. Like, we competitive integrity and blah 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 blah. No, this is a knee jerk reaction. Like, I am almost 100% certain of that, where they were like, no, this patch is bullshit. Like, we don't like the changes. It changes the meta too much. Um, and there are bugs on top of it that make heroes unplayable, and who knows when those bugs will be fixed. Luckily, we've seen the major ones get fixed fairly quickly, but yeah, and the reason I say that, and I'll give you like into my thinking, and then I'll drop it. The reason I say that is, if they were going to do this all along, they would have said it at the start of the season.
Hmm.
Like, they 100% would have been like, this is the patch we're playing on till mid-season madness. So we're going to enjoy this meta across the board. They didn't do that, so I know that this is a reactionary change. I think in the future we could see that bullshit happen again, where we get a new hero dropped in the playoffs, where we get a major change in the playoffs or in the grand finals and stuff like that, because they seem to live in this world where they really want to get it close to the form. And I was on board with that. Like, if you go back and listen to our past shows, I was on board with that. Like, when it was like 4 stages, each stage was 6 weeks long or whatever it was, and then there was like a small tournament at the end. Like, you keep that on one patch, and then you move to the new live version, and then you keep it on that patch, and then you move to the new live version. The only part I had a problem with that was like the playoffs into the grand finals, because that was elongated. Like, that was over 4 or 5 weeks, and then they would change it in between the playoffs and the grand finals, which doesn't make any sense to me. Um, but now that we are in these long, couple month tournaments, you can't realistically say in competitive integrity and we want to be on the live patch in the same sentence and keep a straight face. Like, it's just asinine. So
Hmm.
I think they need to look inward, and I think Sean Miller should look inward. And I think when we go into the next stage, after mid-season madness, I think he should just come out and say, like, we're gonna play on the season 6 patch or whatever the fuck we're on at that point. The season 5 patch, I guess, is what it would be. We're gonna stay on that patch, and that's the patch we're gonna have, and that's gonna maintain competitive integrity.
Absolutely, and we are 2 weeks in to the Overwatch League at this point, and a couple of shakeups this past week. In regards to APAC, Guangzhou Charge actually being the only unbeaten team left. Unfortunately, your Dallas Fuel still looking to secure that first win of the season, but our teams play this week, so that's definitely going to be an all eyes on me type match.
Yep.
in regards to that. Um, in regards to the NA side, obviously Atlanta still absolutely crushing, improving to 4-0. They've still yet to drop a map so far this season. But we'll have to see how Houston Outlaws respond because we do have a pretty big match between the two coming up this Friday, which is actually tomorrow. So outside of that, just like kind of looking back at week 2, we did see a little bit of life out of the New York Excelsior. They took the Toronto Defiant to 5 maps. Unfortunately, they did not come out on top of that, but Toronto did
Nope.
pick up their first win. We had Justice 3-0 in the Valiant, Rain 3-0 the Titans. Unfortunate to see, because it seems like Titans are punching up, and then as soon as they face Atlanta, just like, well, back to the drawing board.
They get the
But
shit
New
beat
York,
out of them.
yeah, it was pretty brutal. Excelsior beat the Valiant 3-1. Uprising also 3-0 the Justice, and it seems like right now in NA, like we have a lot of these teams that are like neck and neck in regards to like who they beat and what their map record is. And then you look back and there's just a 3-0, and it's just like, wait, well, what is actually going on? So we're starting to see a little bit more separation between these teams who
Yep.
are perceived to be neck and neck, which is great to see. So we're probably going to get quite a bit of shakeups in regards to our overall power rankings, which we'll probably end up doing again next week.
Yeah.
But yeah, outside of that, we had the Gladiators taking Mayhem to 5 maps. They ended up winning that game over Florida. And then Florida just, turned around the next day and then 3-0 to the Toronto Defiant. But all in all, Titans bounce back, which is great to see. They 3-0'd the Uprising. So it's like, for me, like the Titans are that team this season that I'm just like, what do I make of this team? Because like it seems like they have really high peaks, but as soon as they face Atlanta, it's just like a buzzsaw.
Mm-hmm.
But they still seem to be like a step ahead of some of these other upper echelon teams. So it's just like, at one point, are they gonna be able to like take that next step? So
Yeah,
that's
I think they're the gatekeeper team to the top half of the league for this year for sure. At least what we've seen so far. I have an inkling that there might be a couple other teams that can play that role. But like you said, there's some shakeups. I will say that Vancouver beat Boston so bad that they made Boston cry, which is sad for the players, but I felt kind of good about it. Like, I was kind of like, we've been talking about the potential boomage of Boston, and I wasn't as thrilled about it actually happening live on camera in front of me. Like, no, I want to see them crumble on social media. Like, that's fine. Like, I don't want to see like a guy crying on camera because he got beat by Vancouver. Like, that's just sad. I just feel bad for him. I'm like, dude, you guys tried so hard and you got your ass kicked. But yeah, this could be the start of the boomage that we've talked about. Like we were like, when's it gonna happen? Maybe now. Like, it might happen way earlier than we thought, but
might not even be mid-season to the mid-season madness.
yeah, exactly. Signs of life from New York. Like, you mentioned that. I was really happy with that. Like, that Toronto game, I think should have went to New York, but Toronto pulled off some insane clutches. Actually, multiple teams pulled off some like stupid clutches this week. Like, there were multiple times, like, who was it? Was it Lastro or something? Or I think it was Lastro that just popped off one map and he just saved the point. There's also, obviously, in the East, we have the Jimmy factor. Like, Jimmy is just going crazy on Hanzo. So, here we are. Guangzhou's the best team in the East, and nobody called that one. Like, everybody's like, wait, where the fuck did they come from? And Dallas against Hangzhou, like, I watched that whole game, and Dallas looked like they were improving. Like, I don't want to upsell them. Like, I don't think they're a top 3 team in the East. Like, I would just not put them at the bottom after that Hangzhou game. But then after that Inferno game, I'm like, oh, dude, we're gonna struggle to beat some teams. And then I was like, well, we can beat the Dragons. They got Fleta on tank. And then fucking Fleta comes out and stomps on the Dynasty like he's been playing tank for 5 years. Like, like they literally, in the time between their Infernal game and their Dynasty game, became like a whole different team. Like, I don't know what they did in that one day, but it just like their dives were cleaner. They were pushing more aggressively when they should. Like, I don't know. Like, as much as I wanted to come into this show and like shit on Fleta, like his improvement on tank, I think is if he can keep it going, and it's very early, I think it will pass Dante. Like in terms of just how much like he's improved, how quickly. But obviously they have to keep it going. Like that could very well just be Dynasty shitting the bed, because Dynasty did not play well that game.
Nope.
So like here we are, Totem, 2023. Back in 2018, our team's playing Battle for the Bottom, baby.
Oh boy. Exactly what I want to see. But at least following this week, Ramses has absolutely zero reason to rank the Infernal at the very bottom of APAC.
No.
As they ended up 3-0 in the Dragons, and then also turned around to 3-0 Dear Dallas Fuel. So feels bad, man. But yeah, like the Fleta power up against the Soul Dynasty was absolutely ridiculous. There is just something about facing your former team and just getting that boost
Yep.
that just cannot be understated. And like it's so weird because obviously we have the Fleta deadlift, and it's always been a DPS thing. But just to see that like transformation week to week has just been absolutely mind-boggling. But who knows? It could just be the level up of facing the former team. It could just be Dynasty not playing all that well this past week, which is fortunate to see. But at least one of our teams gets a win in week 3, so we can finally settle some things at the end of the day. But yeah, like this week was definitely more of an eye opener in regards to APAC. I was not expecting Charge to just come in and just absolutely crush the Spark, because we basically all had the Spark above the Charge and basically like the Dynasty shortly after that. But definitely going to be keeping a close eye on Jimmy and seeing whether or not he can, maintain the level of play that he has been. And there's no reason not to, up to this point in time. But, I just want to see one of our teams bounce back. It's very weird, like coming into like a week where, like both of our teams are going 0-2. It's very uncommon.
Yeah, and of course this week was like highs and lows for me because they were like, we're buffing Junker Queen. And I'm like, woo! But we're not going to play in that patch. Oh, like, I don't know. I think both of our teams have fundamental problems that they need to work through in this meta. And I actually feel like either one of our teams could be better. Maybe not the best in a different meta, but to me, does that make them a good team? Like if they're in, I've always been hard on teams that are very meta dependent. And I'm not going to cut Dallas any slack on that either. Like Dallas has holes, and this meta like just shows those holes that they have. And people are like MCD and Bliss are the problem. Like I can't believe MCD and Bliss are terrible. MCD and Bliss are not the problem. I don't know if you've actually watched the Dallas games, but MCD and Bliss are fine. Like they're not Chio and Fielder, but they are fine. Like they are not the problem. They are fundamentally not communicating like we are used to seeing them communicate and like exercise. I think it's a meta problem. Like I just don't think they have the tools. Like look at Houston. I think if Dallas still had Fearless, Dallas would be a top 3 team because they would have a tank that could shift around to Ramatra, shift around to Ball, Winston. We've seen a lot of Winston in the East. Whereas Hanbin is like forcing the Junker Queen. Hanbin is, even on off tanks that he's good at, he doesn't look good at it. So, I'm not one of those Dallas Fuel fans that is like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and shut up. Like, no, I get to be critical of the team because I want them to do better. And they are like, I honestly am going into this week expecting them to not win, because just the Dynasty has a lot of fundamental problems as well. But the Dynasty at least have the ability to flex around a little more. And I think they can easily catch Dallas with their pants down. So it's a we won the championship, and that's fine for me. It's someone else's turn. let's just leave it at that. But I am all for on the other side, I am all for Guangzhou because I love this like Guangzhou redemption arc, especially like the
Mhm.
whole Jimmy story. Because Custa's like one of the people that I watch, pretty regularly. And Custa was always like huge on Jimmy. Like he started really hard on Jimmy, but then he became a meme, and then Custa like started like building him up as he did like his VOD reviews, and um, now Custa's like inviting him to his wedding, and he's like, I'll
Nice.
drop my best man, and you can be my best man at my wedding.
Mhm.
So like that whole storyline is funny to me, but Choi Siwon is popping off like. Um, they talked about it on Plat Chat, and I agree with that take where Choi So-wan was like above and beyond the best player on the team. It's just the team was shitty for multiple years. Like Choi So-wan was that Fleta deadlift on Guangzhou, but now that he's got, you know, Jimmy and Piggy's playing out of his fucking mind. Like I don't know, like Piggy exercised a demon when he lost all that weight. Like I don't know what happened. Um, like it's cool to see Guangzhou turning this around. And so as much as I want Dallas to do well, and I want Hangzhou to do well, just because of the whole Hunters, Exodus team kind of thing and Team China doing well. I'm all for this Guangzhou redemption arc, so that's cool to me too. But in circling back to the West, the only other thing that I wanted to point out was Atlanta have not dropped a map yet.
Mhm.
So that is insane. Like Guangzhou not dropping a map is fine, um, because there's less competition. And honestly, I think other than Guangzhou and Hangzhou, and not even like the Infernal, because I feel like the Infernal are like on the edge. Um, there's like one other good team in the East, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. Whereas in the West, there are multiple teams that can punch up if you give them a chance. Um, and then there's the Eternal and the Valiant, but
Yeah.
Atlanta could pull off the perfect stage. Like their big test is going to come against Houston, but after Houston, I don't think they really have a team that can test them because it's Valiant and it's Valiant. Like that's it. They don't play week 4. So if they could beat Houston 3-0, I think they could go completely perfect stage.
Yeah, which is extremely uncommon in any esports, really.
Oh no, they do play Boston week 5, and uh, I guess I'll count Paris Eternal. So I'm standing by what I said. If they beat Houston, they could have a perfect stage.
I mean, they're gonna beat Vegas Eternal so bad they'll be back in Paris.
Yeah. Sorry. Every show I got to do that.
Yeah, at least once a week
Yeah.
or once every 2 weeks. But yeah, so just looking at the week 3 schedule, there's a couple of like throwaways to like kick things off. We got Eternal facing the Spitfire, Valiant versus Mayhem. Obviously, the biggest match of the week, Outlaws versus Reign, which we had alluded to, which is happening on Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. But we got some other like pretty notable matches. We got just the Shock. I know you're a little bit higher on the Shock than I am, at least
Mm-hmm.
this year, at least with their power rankings. But I'm expecting New York to make quick work of Eternal just based off of we saw a lot more life out of them, and we mentioned they probably should have beaten the Defiant in that particular match. But we also have the Outlaws versus the Justice, which should be another fairly good match as well. So not the easiest stretch for the Outlaws entering week 3 here.
No, actually, they've got a rough couple of weeks ahead of them. So they've got, let's see, they've got Atlanta is the big one, and then they have Washington, which could go either way depending on what Washington shows up. Then they have the Shock. Then they have London, which London is a different conversation. I don't want to have the London conversation yet, um,
Mhm.
because I feel like London is kind of suffering from the same problem Dallas is. Like they just haven't quite, like last year they had this very determined identity, whereas this year they're like, well, we kind of want to step it up. So we want to come out of our comfort zone, and that's not working for them. But that's like a whole different conversation. And then they have Florida and Vancouver week 5. So Houston, this is like, I wish Ramses was here for this because this is like the Houston test. Like, is Houston obviously the second best team at this point? Because we can't be like, are they the best team in the league? Now, if they beat Atlanta, that comes into that conversation. But yeah, Houston's going to be my one to watch this week, other than, our team's duking it out. Honestly, I want to see how Florida bounces back. Because Florida had that tough loss against the Gladiators, and then they kind of walked over the Defiant. But Florida at least looked mortal, so I expect Florida to use these next 2 games with the Valiant and the London as like a reset. So I think this will be Florida's like. Obviously, I expect them both to win, but more so like the eye test, because they're even in the Defiant game, I feel like that was more Defiant just fucking up than Florida just firing on all cylinders. Now Florida played well, so there was just something off about Florida that we hadn't seen the previous week. So yeah, I'm curious to see how Florida does there. Obviously Vegas, I'm just looking for signs of life at this point. Like, I don't expect them to do
Is
well
there a
or win.
pulse?
Because honestly, if Vegas don't show anything this week, like if they just get 3-0'd both games, I'm just dropping them off the power rankings. Like, they need to earn their way back on there, because it is bad. Like, it hurts. Like, it physically hurts to watch them right now.
Just looking at if they face any of the crappy teams for the remainder of this. I don't think they do. I'm looking ahead.
No. In fact,
They
Vegas,
don't.
the worst team Vegas plays is London, which will be the first game. And then after that, they have New York, which is, another lower tier team. But then they play the possibly boomed Boston, Gladiators, Atlanta, and Toronto. So yeah, it's, if you are a Vegas fan, first of all, why? Second of all, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're gluttons for punishment. That's basically all I can say.
Yep. This coming from the 0-4 Dallas Fuel. 0-3 Dallas Fuel. I gave him an extra loss because it hurt that much.
Yeah, give him extra loss because it was expected at this point. But who knows? But yeah, over on the east side, we got Dynasty taking on the Spark. I'm definitely terrified of that match. Spark have again been one of those teams that have always kind of like had our number.
Yep.
We just don't have as many like losses per se to like the Dragons in comparison sakes. But because the Dragons have always been are better. But we've evened things out a little bit. We got the Fuel facing the Dragons and the Dynasty this week. And Infernal don't have an easy week either. They're facing the Charge and the Spark. So, they've kind of like just been that team. They're sitting at 1-2. Same with the Dynasty at this point. And, like it's hard to say like who's going to be the definitive Seoul team out of Korea. But this is definitely going to be one of those weeks where it's like, I feel like the Infernal definitely have more of an uphill battle between the two. Because Charge is thrown in the mix in this case, but we're also nearing like the east side of the midseason madness as well. Like that's literally like right around the corner.
Oh yeah, that's
it's like next week.
Yeah, where is that? The midseason madness.
Yeah, the knockout stages are next week for the east.
Right. So that's insane. So I don't know, man. And all of the teams get to go, so that's a little weird to me. But we very well could see the Dallas Fuel and the Seoul Dynasty drop to some Korean contenders teams, because the Korean contenders teams look nasty. Especially like Dreamers, and obviously O2 Blast is always a favorite. But Yeah, that's gonna be a fun time, and that starts. You said next week, right?
Yeah, yeah, for the knockouts for the spring stage.
Yeah, so we'll see. I I hope they rebroadcast them because I don't know if you've noticed it, but they're not rebroadcasting the East games anymore. Like they basically do the morning stream and then they wait a couple of hours and then they start the afternoon stream. So I
Hmm.
hope like obviously they can't rebroadcast all of it just because of the way they're timing things. But I feel like they could rebroadcast one of the games at like 9 or 10 a.m. Our time. So we could at least see some of the games. So you don't go back and get, you don't, obviously you can go back and watch the VOD, but come on, we all want those Overwatch League tokens, right? So just
Hmm.
rebroadcast it. Um, like it's 12:30 here now. I could wait 3 hours and watch the games, but then I'd be dead at work tomorrow.
Hmm.
Or I could go to bed and watch the rebroadcast in the morning. So hopefully they change that. So, but yeah, that is. I didn't realize it was that close. So that is. I guess maybe that'll be something I talk about next week, like seeing how that shakes out.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's been weird too because like when you go on the Overwatch League website, like they don't even have the East stand-ins like at all.
Yeah. Well, it's the Joes and everybody else right now anyway. So
Yeah, Charge on top, Fuel on bottom, Souls 1 and 2, and the
yeah,
Sparker 2 and
exactly.
1 because the Spark Soul loss is to the Charge in a 3-0 fashion in that case. But yeah, but I'm sure it's just because like the integration with like the contenders team in the East with the Chundu Hunters
Hmm.
dipping out of the Overwatch League. But it's still it's just weird not to have it, regardless of if they didn't classify it as like the East Mid-Season Madness qualifiers. So to just only show like the West, it's just really jarring to me whenever I'm like pulling up the website because it's like, yeah, I want to know what the stand-ins are, but then like I'm having to keep tabs in my head based off of what has already happened in you know week 2. Which sure, like early on, it's not that big of an issue. There haven't been that many games. It's a lot easier to keep track of. But
Hmm.
after week 3 or week 4 or whatever, like I'm definitely gonna be like, oh man, this is too much for my brain to keep up with. Like I don't want to like have a tally board, you know, set to the side specifically for the East to keep track of how the Soul Dynasty are doing.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like an oversight to me. Like that just seems like they haven't fixed the code in the website. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. If not, always Liquipedia, man.
Yep.
um,
There's always other facets. Yep.
I I guess we're kind of wrapping up. The last couple things is get your pickums in. East locks in a couple of hours, so if you're still up with us tonight while we're recording, get your pickums in. I definitely forgot the first day last week. Um, didn't matter. I'm still ahead of Totem. So,
That's because I didn't do week 1.
oh, well then I am gonna ride that
that
train.
that that would be why. Well, I'm playing catch up at this point. Yeah, I got 30 points last week, so it's not terrible. Here, let me actually pull up the stand-ins really quick for last week. Because it's basically us and Owl.
Yeah,
So West week 2. Well, you also forgot to fill in a day or whatever.
I did.
So I had 23. Owl had 22. I'm not gonna count Spyder because you didn't fill a day. But you had 12.
I did.
We did terrible in the East. Owl
Every
crushed us.
yeah,
Owl beat us combined, 14
yes,
to 13.
yeah. It's insane. My East, I got 6 points. That was it.
And I got 7. Hell yeah, let's go. Yeah, so we're keeping it close. That's a big thing.
Yep,
But yeah, I didn't
exactly.
realize that like it would like auto like renew like the prior one that we were using, but at the same time, the other thing I didn't realize is it was just automatically going to include week 1. Like I thought, like if I just started a new leaderboard, it just would have started at week 2. No, that's not the case. So I'm
No.
basically going to be playing a week behind everyone at this point. But That's okay. I'm looking forward to the challenge, seeing whether or not I could make up a 49-point difference. Jesus
Woo!
Christ. That is a lot. That is more points than you have total
Yeah.
through 2 weeks. Well, minus 1 day.
Yeah, I didn't do so well. I did okay week one. Like it wasn't horrible, but um, it was all right.
Mhm.
But we'll see. So get those in. The other thing is, and I haven't gotten to play around with it yet, so that's why I didn't use it a lot tonight. But I'll probably start looking more into it. Is they relaunched Winston's Lab? So
Oh,
you
did
can.
they? Okay.
Yes, they did. So you can get like actual comparisons and stats on matches again. So if you're a stat guy like me, or girl, unlike me, then check out Winston's Lab. Like it's a cool place to see like data and stuff like that. So I will probably be integrating that a little more into like our talks as I get to play with it, as long as assuming it keeps getting updated. But that was something I had used pretty heavily in the past because the stats lab was okay, but Winston's lab does a lot more comparative, keeping things head to head and stuff like that. So definitely check that out if you like data and stats.
Yeah, who doesn't love numbers? Knowing that there's absolutely too many of them.
Yep. So I will say it does hurt that like player rankings, Fielder is number 2. That hurts. Comeback Fielder. But you get to see like some crazy. They also like include highlights and stuff like um check out the page because like you can go through and they'll show you like, oh, Kevster gets 4 kills on Sojourn, or Gushui gets 4 kills on Winston, stuff like that. So pretty cool. Other than the head to head matchups, they also tell you pick rates. Most picked hero, Tracer. I'm not entirely surprised, but more surprised that it is like I don't know, like I feel like Tracer's in every game, but I feel like she's not in every game for the whole game. Like I don't know, it feels like there's a lot more changing around. Also, I feel like there's a lot more Hanzo than is shown in our pick rates, so that's a little interesting to me as well. But Ana, top support, man. Brig, second top support. So this is definitely something that I am gonna keep an eye on, and like I said, I will probably go through it a little more as I get more familiar with it again, because it has been a couple of years since I've used it. So, and it looks like everything's updated up until last week. So, or up until this week. So it includes last week.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely go check that out at some point, maybe after the recording or on the off week.
Yep.
But yeah, just as a reminder, guys, we do not have a podcast episode next week because it is our off week, but we will have a new episode of Null Sector, which Spyder will be doing.
Yep.
And who knows? Maybe we'll expand some other stuff on that front too, since World Cup is getting fairly close. I'm excited for that to kick off. But also really excited for the east side of the spring stage to see how the Contenders Korea teams are going to do, because it's there's no doubt in my mind that it's going to play severely differently than what we saw in the West.
Oh yeah, yeah. Absolutely, 100%. Like I fully expect us to see some Contenders teams in the quarter and semifinals. I'm not sure if I'm willing to go to the finals, but definitely at least the quarterfinals. So I don't know. Like the East is such a I want to say it's a competitive region, but it's kind of not. Like it's anti-competitive almost. Like there's like the good teams and then there's everybody else. So I definitely think there is room for these contender teams to come in and absolutely shit on Shanghai and Dallas and the Dynasty, like, and the Inferno if they're having an off week or decide to troll. Like the Inferno have really been like, we're a different team, and I'm like, you peel away that sticker and it's like the Fusion logo underneath. Like they're like, nope, we still know how to troll and feed and come in second place.
Yep, always the bridesmaid.
Yep. So, yeah.
All right, well, that will basically sum things up for tonight. Again, guys, if you're looking to keep in contact with us, you can find us on Twitter at HND Overwatch. I can find all of our video content on YouTube at Overwatch League Network or at HND Overwatch. And of course, join our community Discord at discord.me/OWLN show. Outside of that, you can also find us all on social media. I know we all have, Twitter. Not all of us use it as much as the others. But if you want to reach us there, you can find Ramses at Ramses_GG. As for myself, you can find me at Timely Drunk. And Spyder, where can I find you there?
You can find me at _Spyder Gaming. I read today that Elon Musk is stepping down as CEO of Twitter. He will still oversee the company, so maybe they will right the ship, but we'll see. But like I say every other week, if you really want to like get in and ask questions or get a hold of me, Discord is the way to go. We'll see if that changes because Discord is changing all their names. So we'll see what happens with that nonsense. But yeah, Discord's definitely the way to go.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Well, you enjoy this week's action as well as week 4. We'll probably I want to still do watch parties. It's just finding the right time because it's like with the current schedule. Like I really hate I've had multiple weeks where it's like, oh, I'm off Thursday, and I'm like, well, shit. There's only games Friday, Saturday, Sunday this week.
Yep.
And I'm just like, why? Because I would definitely do a watch party on like my off day if there were games happening, but that hasn't been the case. So, it's just like, man, I am just stuck at this point in time. But who knows? Maybe we'll just wait to do it for, the playoffs in this regard for, the stages. But I'll let you guys know more on that front. But until then, guys, you enjoy your weeks. We'll see you back in 2 weeks' time. And don't forget to go check out Null Sector when it drops next Thursday, because you usually do that, before... the pre-stream traditionally. But yeah, just find it over on the YouTube and enjoy the content. We'll see you guys around.
See ya.